Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett was humiliated in public and dismissed by staff, treated like a problema until the retired federal judge she married walked through the doors and flipped the script. Jasmine Crockett didn't have the luxury of slowing down, and not that day. She'd been running on fumes for 3 weeks, committee meetings in Sacramento, a policy roundtable in San Antonio, a last-minute town hall in Tulsa. Her carry-on had barely been unpacked between flights. But today wasn't about policy. Today was personal. Her cousin Devin had passed at just 42. Liver failure. They'd grown up like siblings. Missing the funeral was never an option. She arrived at Dallas Love Field a little after 6:30 a.m., wearing a simple black dress under her blazer. Coffee in one hand, phone in the other. She scrolled through emails while moving toward the Southwest check-in desk. Her flight to Jackson, Mississippi, was boarding at 7:10. The first sign of trouble came in a glance. Quick, almost imperceptibly, but Jasmine had seen that look before. The young agent behind the desk looked at her, smirked slightly, then returned to his screen. "I'm on flight 2376 to Jackson," she said. "I'd like to check my carry-on." He typed, frowned. "You're not in the system." "That can't be right," Jasmine said calmly. "I checked in an hour ago." She handed over her phone. He glanced at it, then back at her. "There's been a change. Your seat's been reassigned. You'll have to wait." "Reassigned to what?" No answer. Instead, he waved over a second employee, barely acknowledging Jasmine. "She's flagged for random review," the woman said flatly. "We'll need to recheck your credentials." Jasmine blinked. "Excuse me?" "It's routine number." "It's not. I've flown this route 4 times this year. This has never happened." The first agent stood. "Ma'am, if you don't calm down, I'll have to ask you to step aside." "Calm down?" Jasmine's voice stayed even. "I'm asking a question." "That's enough. Please stand over there." Passengers behind her had started paying attention. Phones were coming out. Someone whispered, "That's Congresswoman Crockett." But that didn't seem to matter here. Jasmine stepped aside, jaw locked. She showed her government ID. "I'm on official travel," she said. The second agent barely looked at it. "ID doesn't override protocol." Something was wrong. This wasn't a mistake. This was personal. "I'll cooperate," Jasmine said, "but I want to speak to a supervisor." That was when the first agent motioned toward someone off-screen. "Security, please." Jasmine hadn't raised her voice, hadn't broken a single rule, and now she was being treated like a threat. 2 TSA officers arrived, moving with that certain passive like they already assumed guilt. "Ma'am," one said, "we need you to come with us." "For what?" "Random review." "Please don't make this more difficult than it has to be." Jasmine held out her ID and boarding pass again. "I've already checked in. This is an official government trip." "That's a real badge. There's no issue here except the one you're making." He didn't even look at the badge. "Ma'am, please." "We're not asking." She glanced at the gate. Flight 2376 was still listed as boarding. Her mother was already in Jackson. Devin's daughter had asked if Auntie Jazz would speak at the service. Jasmine inhaled once, deeply, then walked with the officers. They led her through a side door. Fluorescent lights buzzed faintly overhead. Another agent joined them, whispered something the others nodded to. "We'll need a full pat-down," one said, "and your bag will be screened." "No warrant, no probable cause," Jasmine said softly. "You're walking a line. We're following protocol. You can file a complaint later." She didn't resist. Arms out. No words. They patted her down, rifled through her bag, pulled out files, toiletries, everything. 10 minutes passed, then 15. Finally, Jasmine asked, "Can someone explain why I was pulled?" An agent shrugged. "We don't handle seating. That's the airline." She looked at her watch. 7:16. The plane had already pushed back. She sat in the cold metal chair against the wall, silent. Her funeral dress was wrinkled now. Her curls had fallen loose. Her voice had never risen. Her badge had meant nothing. And still, she was treated like a threat. She sent one text. "I was pulled. Missed flight. I need you here." When the door opened again, The man who walked in didn't ask questions. Franklin Rhodes had spent 30 years as a federal judge. He didn't speak loudly, but when he entered a room, you felt it. Jasmine had told him not to come inside earlier, said it was a short trip, nothing to worry about, but something had gone wrong, and when she said need, he moved. Wearing a dark gray coat and the maroon scarf Jasmine bought him last Christmas, Franklin's walk was slow, deliberate. Jasmine stood when she saw him. No words. She didn't need them. He turned to the closest officer. Who's in charge? Sir, may I ask who you are? I'm Franklin Rhodes, retired federal judge, 9th Circuit. Who's in charge? The officer blinked, caught off guard. Franklin turned to Jasmine. What happened? She told him, calmly, completely. The officer returned with a supervisor who offered his hand halfway. We didn't know. Franklin didn't take it. Why was her seat reassigned? I'd have to check. Then check. He turned to the original agent, to the one with the smirk. Why did you call security? She wouldn't stand down. She asked about her seat. Yes. Bota. Did she shout, number, threaten anyone, number? Franklin leaned in. You escalated without cause. You ignored federal credentials. You detained a congresswoman with no suspicion. Do you understand that's a violation? I didn't know who she was. Franklin didn't blink. It shouldn't matter. Word was spreading. A few people pulled out their phones again. Another clip started recording. The moment was shifting. The supervisor returned, fumbling. We'd like to offer a first-class rebooking. Franklin stopped him. She doesn't need a seat. She needed dignity. 20 minutes ago, Jasmine finally spoke. He's not trying to get me a better seat. He's trying to get you to understand that this wasn't about status. This was about how you treat people. The gate manager arrived, clipboard shaking. Judge Rhodes, Congresswoman Crockett. Yeah. Franklin cut him off. Not interested in introductions. I want a name. That's a personnel matter. So is discrimination. Silence fell again. Thick. Charged. You escalated a non-incident into a full detainment, Franklin said. You ignored legal ID. You obstructed a federal official. For what? Because someone didn't like being questioned? Jasmine's voice was cold now. I missed the funeral. But this was never just about me. Don't reframe it. They left without looking back. By the time they reached the parking lot, her phone was buzzing with missed calls and messages. She didn't check them yet. Franklin looked toward the terminal. They didn't expect me to show up, he said. They didn't expect anyone to care, Jasmine replied. Later that night, in a Jackson hotel room, she sat on the edge of the bed. Room service untouched. The funeral already over. Her family sent pictures. Tried not to sound disappointed, but she heard it anyway. The news was everywhere. So were the videos. But what struck her most were the comments. A nurse. They pulled me out of line once for questioning a delay. I cried in the bathroom. A teacher. I didn't yell. I just asked why, and they treated me like I didn't matter. A man from Oakland. The way they handled her is how they handled my father. He missed his heart surgery. No one apologized. Jasmine looked at Franklin. They treated me like I was invisible. He nodded. Do you think they'll learn? I don't know, she said. But maybe someone else will. Because moments like these they stick. Not always for the people who caused them, but for the people who lived through them, and for the ones watching, whispering, this has happened to me too. By the following morning, the story had moved beyond headlines. It had become a conversation on cable news, across morning radio shows, in online forums, group chats, and lunch tables across the country. Not just about one flight or one congresswoman, but about the systems we trust, the ways they fail, and who gets treated as a person versus a problem. Jasmine Crockett hadn't planned to be a symbol. She didn't want to be anyone's viral moment. But the video had done what no press conference could. It showed the quiet dignity of someone forced to prove their worth while doing absolutely nothing wrong. And people saw themselves in her. Teachers wrote in, veterans, nurses, retired grandparents, young professionals, people who had traveled, complied, cooperated and still being made to feel like trespassers in places they had every right to be. Meanwhile, the airline scrambled. First came the corporate statement, cold and sanitized. Then, hours later, a second ordeal longer, marginally more humane but still avoiding accountability. We regret the incident involving Congresswoman Crockett and are reviewing our procedures to ensure every customer is treated with respect and professionalism. No mention of names, no mention of actions, no mention of why it happened. But America had seen why. It was in the smirk, the tone, the refusal to acknowledge credentials, the unspoken assumption that Jasmine didn't belong, and not until her husband, an older man with silver hair and a federal badge, appeared and shifted the power dynamic. The message was clear: alone, she wasn't believed. With the man beside her, she was taken seriously. That wasn't lost on the public. Back in Washington, Jasmine returned to her office at the Rayburn Building with a quiet purpose. Her staff buzzed around her with updates to press requests, policy drafts, and a binder full of notes from supporters and constituents. She thanked them gently but didn't say much. She hadn't slept well since Jackson. At 8 p.m. that night, she sat alone at her desk. The lights were dim, the sky outside painted with the last purple of sunset. She opened her laptop, placed her fingers over the keyboard, and began to write out not a speech, not a press release, a letter. To everyone who has ever been silenced, dismissed, or ignored, that this is for you. Last week, I missed a funeral. I missed a chance to honor a man who was like a brother to me because someone saw my face, my body, my presence, and made a judgment, not based on behavior, not based on policy, not based on any threat, but based on something far more familiar to too many people in this country: the assumption that I didn't belong. Even after presenting federal ID, even after complying with every request, I was treated like a problem to be removed and not a person with a destination, a purpose, and yes, a title I had earned. But this letter isn't about my title. It's about dignity. Because you shouldn't need to be a congresswoman, a judge, or anyone important to be treated like a human being. You shouldn't need a camera, a badge, or a husband to defend your right to be respected. What happened at that airport didn't start with me, and unfortunately, it won't end with me. It was a symptom of something deeper, a system of silent permissions, quiet punishments, and assumptions so old they feel like rules. But here's the thing: rules can change, so can systems. I don't write this out of anger. I write it out of responsibility. To the woman who told me she cried in the airport bathroom. To the man who missed his surgery. To the students who watched the video and said, "That happened to my mom." I see you. I believe you. And I'm not letting this moment fade. We can't afford to. A Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. The letter was published the next morning in the Washington Post, the Dallas Morning News, and on Jasmine's official site. It spread like wildfire, not because it was dramatic but because it was true. And in its truth, it gave language to what so many had felt but hadn't been able to explain. Cable anchors read parts of it live. Celebrities reposted it. Civil rights leaders praised it. Even conservative voices who didn't always agree with Jasmine's politics acknowledged the letter's power. And something else happened. Other elected officials began speaking up. A Latina senator from Nevada recalled how she'd once been pulled aside at an airport for traveling alone. A black city councilwoman from Ohio shared how her husband was told to calm his wife down during a flight delay even though she'd said nothing. A newly elected Asian American representative spoke about being asked if she was visiting from overseas while standing in the security line with her congressional badge. They had stories too. They always had. And now, they weren't staying silent. That week, Jasmine introduced a bill, the Dignity in Travel Act. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't sweeping reform. But it was something real. A federal requirement for transparency and justification in random detentions involving government ID. A civil audit process for discriminatory escalations. Federal-level data collection on escalations by race, gender, and citizenship status in airport incidents. Some called it performative. Others called it powerful. Jasmine didn't care what they called Ida as long as the conversation stayed alive. 3 weeks later, the young gate agent Colleen resigned. He never made a statement, never tried to defend himself, but he did leave a letter for HR. One sentence: "I didn't think she mattered because I thought I could get away with it." That letter never went public, but someone on the airline's diversity team read it, and didn't forget it. Back in Dallas, the terminal was quiet again. Same floor tiles, same gates, same morning bustle. But near gate 22B, someone taped a printout to the employee bulletin board. Jasmine's quote, typed in bold, Respect shouldn't be situational, and dignity doesn't require a title. No one admitted to putting it there, but no one took it down either. And far away from the cameras, from Capitol Hill and cable news, a little girl in Jackson sat with her mother. She scrolled through pictures of Jasmine from that day, not the ones in the terminal, but the ones that came after. The speech, the legislation, the letter. "Was that Auntie Jazz?" she asked. Her mother smiled. "Yes, baby." And she kept her promise, just in a different way. The girl leaned her head on her mom's shoulder and whispered, "She made them see her." Her mother nodded. "She made them see all of us."